Okay, after quite a rambly video just then, I'm going to look properly now and hopefully quite succinctly at dynamic lighting. So if you've only used Roll20 as a player before, you won't ever have seen the dynamic lighting layer. But if you've played with a GM who has a Pro or a Plus account, you will have seen its effects, and it looks something like this. So if you're a player, so this is your player token, the GM can always get the player's view or a particular token's view of the tabletop by pressing Control and L. I think on a Mac it's Command and L, but this would be what it looks like as a player, and you'd be used to this. Except in Necromunda you have a 90-degree vision arc, so I've set all the tokens to have that, as we discussed in earlier videos, and you can change that by just rotating the token. And these are the things you can see. Normally in RPGs and stuff, you'd probably have like a 360-degree vision arc, so you'd see more than this. But this would be a sort of familiar view to anyone who's used to being a player in a D&D game or something on this platform. But clear that out. So getting that to work, if you've not used this as a GM before, you have 4 layers on the VGT. You can see them all up here on this thing here. So map and background, everyone can see, but it sits as the lowest layer. So the all the stuff that's on the map is all on that map layer. I'm on the objects and tokens layer at the moment, which is where all the characters and stuff go. And you can't interfere with anything on the map while it's there, so you don't move it. To go there, there's keyboard shortcuts for this as well, which I do recommend switching on. It's over in the settings, which will show you that. Advanced keyboard shortcuts, I recommend having that on, and this link here will explain what they all are, but it's really handy for navigating between layers like quickly, so you don't have to go over to this menu all the time. But yeah, so map and background means you're on that, and you can accidentally move things around when you're on that layer if you don't realise, but Control and Z will put it back, which is handy. So map and background, objects and tokens is the one that players can see and use things on as long as they've got access to use the particular things. So the players will have access to their character, they'll be able to move their character around where they are, see what they can see, and interact with things that they have edit access to. The GM info overlay, so that's where these green numbers are, because everybody who's playing the game will be a co-GM on it. Everyone will be able to see those, but that's why they're a bit fainter. You can make them a bit fainter to fade into the background, and usually the players can't see anything on this layer, so it's where when you're playing an RPG or something, the GM can hide monsters and stuff that they haven't detected yet. And then you keep them there and then spring them on them by suddenly throwing them onto the objects layer so they can see them. What we really want to talk about in this one, GM overlay opacity, so that makes things bold, like darker or paler. That's too pale. But yeah, so you have a slider there to do that. That's also in the page settings that you get to in the page toolbar up here. But yeah, dynamic lighting is what we're going to look at here. So if I go back to objects quickly and grab this champion. So line of sight blocking stuff, basically on the layer I'm about to show you will have lines all over it, and that blocks the vision and optionally the movement of players' tokens, so they can't move them through those lines if you have that setting on, which I think I do, but I think just because actually I don't think that'll work in this, so might as well turn that off. But it does block line of sight, so if you need to check line of sight to someone, if you want to see if this champion can see this ganger, you can check line of sight there. If their token's a bit obscured, they're going to get cover to hit penalties and stuff like that, so you can work that out. With the grid still on, it's tricky to move them where I want, so yeah, so I'd look at things like if more than half the token is visible, that's the -1 to hit penalty. If less than half the token's visible, that's going to be the -2 penalty. If you can see the whole token, they're not in cover. I think it's just a simple way to translate those cover rules from the tabletop onto here. And you can, I imagine we'll be playing just with this view all the time, so you can see where everything is. But if you need to check line of sight, it's Control and L, you can see what that character can see. Yeah, so actually setting it up It's a bit fiddly and time consuming, so we need to go to the dynamic lighting layer now. And that is just what all these lines are. So basically every line that you draw on this layer will block a character's line of sight. And it is a bit fiddly and time consuming, but you do it once and then you leave it, and you leave that map. And I'm imagining we set up several maps and just leave them there, and then we choose a map to play on, and that's where the battle happens, and then you leave it alone. So it's like a one-off task to generate all that kind of line of sight blocking stuff, and then you just leave it. And you just use these tool here, so you can use the shape tool to draw squares and rectangles, which I've done around the whole edge of the map, and then this polygon line tool to draw smaller things, and that's just a case of drawing those things around. I want to show you on the other map actually, because this map had doors on, so I'm still on the dynamic lighting layer on this map. So these just the one door actually, but I do doors in a different color, and this is something I do when I'm playing D&D as well, and I'm drawing dynamic lighting lines on maps. You just have a different color so you can see which bit is going to be movable when people open doors. So you could I've selected too much there. I'm probably going to need to zoom in a bit. There we go. So select just that one, move it over to the side there. That's not going to interfere with anyone because no one can see into it anyway. But that will be the door open, and that's just a quite simple way of distinguishing your doors from your walls. So the walls are going to stay there for the whole fight, but doors will open and close. Where I've got dotted lines along here, that's where people are going to get cover. I think there has to be a bit of a judgment call or sort of common sense sort of stuff, because about how far away people are from the edge and stuff like that. But I'm imagining things like, if I go back to the objects layer, so this champion here, if I rotate them I need to rotate them that way a bit. There we go. So you can see that there's parts of this they can't see. They can obviously see up there, but it's just people over that are standing up near the edge are going to get a bit of cover from the edge of that sort of lip, where they're standing a bit higher, and if they're a bit further back, it's going to obscure them a bit. It's just sort of to represent that. I think if someone's standing right on the edge, they probably shouldn't get any cover, but it's going to be a bit of a judgment call on how that works really. So we're just it's a good way to basically represent that sort of thing. Having a dotted line can represent a higher level where you might get a bit of cover and it might obscure you a bit. So similarly with these pipes here, they're not going to totally obscure people, but they can sort of stand behind them and get a bit of cover from it. So that's dynamic lighting. I'm going to link below the link to the Roll20 wiki page, which explains how dynamic lighting works, which is going to be a better way to go back if you need to recap anything. But yeah, all that information is there. And again, dynamic lighting is not available on free Roll20 accounts. It has to be in a game that's created by a GM with a Pro or a Plus account to have access to it. It's just not there for any other account level. I think there's still more to do on this before we start playing, before we start testing it as well. So there will, I'm sure, be more videos in this about how we're setting this up. So it's been a couple of weeks because I've been busy doing other stuff, but there's a bit more Necromunda on Roll20 for you.